Guys, what's up? Rob Shoecraft here with 3 Storm Fitness. I'm going to give you the too long didn't watch version first because there's a lot I want to talk about protein today. And yeah, there's a lot to talk about. So let me give you the quick takeaways. If you want to gain weight or lose weight or get stronger or recover faster, all those things tend to work together pretty well, by the way, except for gain weight and lose weight, but never mind. That's another video. You got to eat 0.7 grams to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. That's kind of the sweet spot, all right? And if you're not getting most of your protein from animal sources, you got to make sure, so if you're mainly plant-based or totally plant-based, you got to make sure your meals have all the essential amino acids in them. And you have to give meal prep total priority. The same effort that you put into resistance training, you got to put into meal prep, at least as far as consideration goes, planning goes. There's no other way to get around that. If you do all of those things, those 3 simple things, which we'll talk about in depth here, you will be successful in whatever your body composition goal is. All right, let's get into it now. So first I want to establish who I'm talking to. First, actually, I want to establish that we're talking about protein. This is like frequently asked questions regarding protein, and you know, the hows, the who's, not the who, yeah, the who's. We'll start with the who's. Just about everything that you need to know if you make up, let's say 95, maybe even 99% of people who exercise regularly, resistance training specifically, and have, like I said before, the goal of losing weight, losing fat, putting on muscle, keeping muscle while you're losing fat, getting stronger, getting more powerful, whatever it is your goal is, recovering, just general health. Protein is a monster factor in the equation. And there's a lot of things that people just, for whatever reason, I guess health class failed them, or they just don't care. I want to lay it all out. This is not for folks who are trying to get that, like, that half a percentage optimization, that edge, you know, bodybuilders, competitive, you know, elite powerlifters. This is not for you. For you might need to get into the weeds a little bit. I'm not going to get into the weeds too much here. I want to just cover the stuff, kind of back to my 0 to burrito, I almost call it Pareto. You know, the 80-20 stuff. The stuff that if you follow this, you're going to be okay. It doesn't cover every little last drop of information. It's the stuff that if you follow this, if you watch this, you take notes, and you do what I tell you to do, you're going to be fine, okay, regardless of what your goal is. So let's talk about protein. Now that we've established who I'm talking to. Why should you care? First question, why should you care about getting enough protein? I'm going to link to a few papers, a few like some research material that backs up what I say here. Just in case you don't believe me, and that's totally fine. You shouldn't believe me. You should always fact check stuff, my opinion. Okay, again, I'm not going to talk about all the thousands probably of health benefits concerning getting enough protein, getting enough quality protein. You know, blood sugar regulation, brain function, wound healing, immune system. All that stuff is super great. But I'm going to speak, again, this is more to like us shallow individuals who mainly just care about looking better naked and being able to beat up people in a bar, right? That probably is 95% of who I'm talking to anyway. So, what about protein helps you beat people up and look better naked? Well, it builds muscle. You absolutely have to have protein. Prioritize protein to build muscle. I think everybody probably knows that, or at least knows it enough to recite it, whether or not they know what that really means. You don't have to know what it means, just accept that as fact. If you want to build muscle, you have to eat an adequate amount of protein. It makes you stronger. Now, Muscle and strength are pretty well linked for the most part. So that kind of goes without saying, perhaps. You might have, I might have implied that. But it's linked directly to strength gains for both trained individuals, folks who've been working out for a long time, and untrained. Although the longer you work out, the more trained you are, the more protein and protein supplementation, if you're doing that, is linked to more significant gains. So, but anyways, makes you stronger, builds muscle. Preserves lean mass while you're trying to lose weight, while you're cutting, while you're trimming, while you're leaning out, whatever it is. If you really care about losing body fat, getting more shredded or toned or whatever you want to call it, and not just losing weight, not just what the scale says, but actually looking like you've lost weight, which includes muscle when you lose weight. I talked about it in the previous video. You'll make sure you're getting enough protein, okay? You'll make sure you're getting enough protein if you really care about losing fat, about looking better naked. It allows you to recover more quickly. In fact, it is necessary to recover properly and in a reasonable amount of time. A really hard workout, really hard, weightlifting workout, or just, think of like a CrossFit workout if that's your thing, or just about any kind of difficult workout, which you might be doing 3 times a week. It could take literally days, sometimes weeks, but usually days for most folks I'm talking to recover from that. And if you are not getting sufficient amounts of protein, you are not going to recover properly. You're not going to get stronger over time. You'll plateau more quickly, and you'll probably get injured more quickly. Okay, so protein is that important for recovery. And it helps burn fat. Like, just eating more protein can actually, not only does it preserve muscle while you're in a caloric deficit, while you're eating less calories, trying to lose weight, but eating more protein can actually have a positive effect on fat loss in and of itself. And, it could be because it helps regulate blood sugar, and it's preserving that muscle is more metabolically demanding than fat. But I mean, I think just kind of a little bonus is, one of the things about protein is it has what's called a thermogenic effect. All foods do. And basically what I'm referring to is, when you eat food, whether it's a fat source or carb source or protein source, or, well, I don't want to get into alcohol and ketones, but any of those 3 main macronutrients, when you eat, it takes energy. You burn calories to digest it. The majority of people burn about 15% of their total caloric intake just from eating. So it's kind of, I guess, ironic. So if you're eating, let me do some quick math here. If you're eating 2,000 calories a day, you're probably burning 300 calories just by eating those 2,000 calories. Does that make sense? So protein, the properties of protein, it requires about 15% on average for whole food protein, like chicken and quinoa or whatever. About 15% of the calories in that source of protein just to digest the protein. So I wouldn't base an entire diet around that. The whole negative calories thing. I wouldn't base a whole diet on that, but it is a nice little bonus. The more protein you eat, the more you burn eating. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. I know it sounds kind of circular and confusing, but. And then lastly, it's satiating. It fills you up. When you eat a lot of protein, you feel more full, and that really comes into play, especially when you're trying to lose weight. If you're in a caloric deficit, if you're eating less calories, if you're eating lots of protein, which I highly recommend, it's going to be more sustainable. It's going to be a little bit easier to maintain that caloric deficit, starving yourself, whatever it is you're going for. By eating a lot more protein, you're going to be a little more full. It's going to be a little more tolerable. Okay, so that answers the why you should care. Hopefully that answers that question for you. Why should you care about eating protein? Okay, what is an adequate amount? This is kind of a lot of these questions have wars fought over them. This is one of them. How much do you need to eat? How much protein do you need to eat to enjoy all the benefits that I just listed? Well, most people, let me just start by saying most people new to training, most people who are just starting to work out, care about fitness and their wellness and all that, they think they're eating enough. Or actually, I should say most people don't even consider whether or not they're eating enough. They're looking for the best exercise to, the best kind of side bend to burn their inner tube, their tire. So they're not even coming close to the protein they need. I've talked to hundreds of people, literally hundreds of people over the past few years, and almost none of them have any idea how much protein they're eating, and the ones who do aren't eating enough. I mean, it's just the way it is. Even folks who've been training for years, usually the folks who have had the same weight on the bar and maybe don't even look like they've worked out even though they've been working out for a decade, if you really drive into what their behaviors are, it could be their training protocol, but usually they're just not eating enough protein. I mean, it really is that important. So back to what's an adequate amount? Well, it depends on the person. Most evidence, most research finds the sweet spot for those who are training regularly, those who are working out regularly and working out with a pretty decent intensity, so you're working hard and you're working often. They need between 0.7 grams per pound of body weight to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. That is the sweet spot. Anything before that and you're not really getting enough. Anything after that, anything more than 1 gram of protein, and you're starting to really get a lot of diminishing returns. So that sweet spot is at 0.7 to 1. So if you're 200 pounds, you're going to want anywhere from 140 grams to 200 grams a day, okay? Now some folks, like endurance athletes, like really high-level endurance athletes who are doing tons and tons of steady-state cardio, going on like 15-mile jogs every day, that sort of thing, they're going to need probably even more protein. But you might not think, why would an endurance athlete need more protein? Well, it's because you're basically going catabolic. Your body is just like freaking out and needs more protein. And you're starting to lose muscle mass. So if you want to preserve muscle mass, which is important for running and strength and all that, you need even more protein because you're, I'll just say, for lack of a better word, burning up so much in the process of your training. For older people, for folks, senior citizens, if you're a senior citizen, you don't absorb protein as efficiently. You don't get the same amount of protein out of that piece of chicken. Your body doesn't use the same amount as somebody who's, say, in their 20s. So you need to eat more. So you need to err closer to that 1 gram per pound of body weight, at least based on the research, okay? You sort of got to play with it. All this stuff requires trial and error, right? But this, again, is meant to just address the majority of people. This is what works for almost everybody. All right, so we talked about what's an adequate amount. What does that look like? Like, what does 140 grams of protein to 200 grams of protein a day look like? Well, let me just give you a few examples. A chicken breast has about 25, most chicken breasts, they vary. But a chicken breast, the one you're normally going to eat with a meal about that big, is going to be about 25, 30 grams of protein. It could be more, it could be less, about 30 grams, give or take. A can of tuna, you're looking at about 25 grams if you eat the full can of tuna, like the classic little hockey puck size tuna can. An egg, great source of protein. Doesn't have quite as much as I think a lot of people think though, but it's very quality protein. You're looking at also a lot of fats too. You're looking at about 6 grams for your large egg, 6 to 7 grams. About a wallet size piece of steak, everybody likes to use the wallet as an example for how big your steak should be. 3 ounces of steak, about 25 grams of protein. Lean steak. 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, you're looking at about 7 grams. You're also looking at about 14 grams of fat. So peanut butter, it's a great food for a lot of people, as long as you don't have like an intolerance to it. But a lot of people want to call it a protein source. So yeah, I eat a lot of protein, I eat tons of peanut butter. We also eat a ton of fat too. So protein, peanut butter, I'm not poo-pooing it, but probably doesn't have as much as you think it is, as it does. But it has about 7 grams for 2 tablespoons, 1 serving. And then most protein supplements, you know, back to like talking to folks who are new to fitness, or again, just folks who aren't getting enough protein in general. You ask them, do you get enough protein? Or how much protein do you eat? And you say, they always say, well, yeah, I have a shake every day. It's like, that's great, but what else are you doing? Because that's not cutting it. So most protein shakes have about 20 to 30 grams per serving. So you got to make sure, this is key. Sounds stupid, but I've talked to at least a couple people over the past 2 years who thought that they were getting a full serving of protein when that full serving required 2 scoops, right? In their particular brand of protein powder. 2 scoops, they were just getting 1, so they're getting half. That adds up over time. So make sure you're getting the right serving size for all this stuff. Serving size is critical. So about 20 to 30 grams for a scoop of, or for a serving of protein powder. So you do the math. You're trying to hit, if you're 200 pounds, trying to hit 140 grams to 200 grams a day, and you're getting 25 grams out of a chicken breast. Like, how can you get that amount of protein in a day? It is possible. It looks overwhelming. Almost everybody says, no way, there's no way I could do that. I cannot do that. You can if you want results. I mean, you have to do it. Like, I don't know of another way. I just don't. But the key is, it's really not that, it's not insurmountable, okay? I do it. Millions of people do it who are in fantastic shape. It's certainly possible, and you can absolutely do it too. The key is meal prep. You have to prep your meals. You have to have a plan. I cannot stress it enough. It does not matter what diet you're doing. I'm going to do a huge, general diet video. I've done a million different diets, mainly just out of curiosity, just to see what effects they have on my body. Every single one of them requires meal prep. Getting enough protein is no exception. You have to have a game plan, and you have to execute it every day. Now, again, that probably sounds even more insurmountable. But when you batch your meal plans, that's what I recommend. Unless you have like a chef, or you live with your mom or whatever, and you're just getting meals on demand, then, or you have a service. I think there actually is a service called Meals on Demand. I don't know. But for most of us, right, with limited budgets, you got to batch things. You got to have a little bit of a game plan. Once you get in the rhythm, it's not that hard. I mean, I'll do a video on this to prove it. I can literally make 3 to 5 days worth of protein-rich meals with about 10 minutes of prep, right, for less than 15 bucks. Now, you know, I'm not factoring in the cook time and everything, but as far as the effort that it takes me to prep the meal, throw it in the crock pot, and divvy it up in Tupperware containers, it takes about 10 minutes total. Like, I'm serious. It's not that hard. You just need to think about it. You need to put a little effort into it. And you need to, I highly recommend batching. You have like a Sunday afternoon, and or whatever your schedule allows for that time. You just lay it all out. You plan on what you're going to eat, and you cook it all at once, and it's really, really not that hard. Unless you have a crazy palate, a really picky palate that, you can't eat leftovers or whatever, then I recommend getting, if that's the case for you, I do feel for you. I'm married to one of those beautiful people. You either need to become a really good cook, or you need to get a second job, or find a way to make more money so you can pay for somebody to do it for you. And I'm not saying that tongue-in-cheek. I am a little bit. But, you know, if you really can't eat leftovers, if you really can't eat the same meal 2 times in a day, then you need to find more time or more money or more skills in the kitchen. That's the bottom line. There's no getting around it. There really isn't. So meal prep, okay? For most of us, batching your meals all in one go every 3 to 5 days is the way to go. You can make 3 to 5 different meals at once if you want to. I'll show you how to do all that crap in another video. All right, so it is possible. It's very possible. It's very doable. When should you eat protein? When should you, this is another question that causes a ton of bloodshed in the scientific and meathead community. My answer, again, I'm catering to the masses here. My answer is when you should eat protein, it's whenever you can. All right, it's whenever you can get in that adequate amount. As long as you have a solid resistance training program, one that requires you to train hard and train with some regularity, you know, most of them like 3 to 4 times a week, you're going to be fine by just getting that, you know, again, in the case of a 200-pound male or 200-pound person, 140 to 200 grams of protein a day, spaced out about every 3 to 5 hours. It's going to be fine. It's going to be enough. Now, if you asked me this question like a year and a half ago, I would have said most important meal of the day, post-workout meal. 30 minutes after you work out to 60 minutes after you work out, that's what's called your window of gains. That's when your body is most starved for that protein, the protein synthesis process and all that stuff. That's when you have to make sure you get a huge amount of protein, huge bolus of protein, right? While I still do that religiously, it's an old habit, and it's not a bad one, right? Again, if you're trying to really squeeze every last drop of optimization out of how you look and your performance, if you're one of those elite kind of level folks, then yes, timing can be a critical part of the process. But again, for most people, and I'm talking to like 95% of people who train hard and just have, you know, they want to look great on the beach, whatever. For all of those folks, even, you know, amateur powerlifters, almost everybody is going to get the results they want by eating that in that adequate protein range, spaced for a reasonable amount of time between meals, about 3 hours, give or take. Don't sweat the details too much. Just make sure you make it happen. You're going to be fine. So that's when you should eat protein, is whenever you can. Okay, whatever that looks like, getting it in, that's when you should do it. That's my answer, and it will work as long as you're consistent. Are some sources of protein better than others? Absolutely, but not necessarily. Okay, so just a super quick science thing. Protein consists of 20 amino acids, and 9 of those amino acids are considered essential, meaning that you have to get them from foods. Your body's not going to make them. Essential amino acids. Not every food that you eat has a complete profile. Not every food that you eat has those essential amino acids in them. And I'm mainly talking about plant-based foods here. If you are an omnivore, you know, if animal products, meats, cheeses, eggs, if they're a regular part of your diet, if every meal or close to every meal during the day you're eating some form of an animal product, you're getting all your essential amino acids. If you are more plant-based or exclusively plant-based, it's going to require a bit more work. It becomes a little bit more complicated. You're making it harder on yourself, but if you're doing it for a reason that makes you happy, more power to you. I 100% support you there, and it is possible to get the results you want plant-based. You just got to work a little more for it. I don't do that. I don't mess with that. I'm a murderer. So I'm not really speaking from experience here, But while I'm researching, it always comes up, plant-based, plant-based. What do? You just do a little bit more. You got to plan a little bit more. You got to combine meals. You got to combine foods that have all the essential amino acids in them. So you got to, make sure you look those up. If you're eating, rice and beans, make sure you eat them together, that sort of thing, to get all the essential amino acids. Some plant-based foods they are complete, like quinoa. I love quinoa. Quinoa it's a complete amino acid profile. Now, having said that, eggs are also a complete protein source. So quinoa and eggs, this is me holding a handful of quinoa and an egg, complete protein sources. But one is better than the other. And it kind of depends on how you define it. If you're just looking at those two by themselves, I'm going to get to the main point in a second here. Why it kind of doesn't really matter. Number one, there are a couple different tests out there, kind of standards out there, for determining how protein is absorbed, what the efficiency of protein absorption in eggs, and basically it amounts to digging around in poop. Eggs have a higher absorption than most plant-based foods like soy and quinoa and all that stuff. That said, there's some, the accuracy of those tests is a little muddy, but I don't want to get into the weeds. Here's the thing. If throughout the day you are getting all the essential amino acids that you need, and enough of them, and what does that mean? Usually what it means is you are making sure that every one of your meals has all the essential amino acids in it, right? That's usually what that means. If you're getting an adequate amount of, say, a very important amino acid like leucine, as long as you're getting the rest, as long as you're hitting those numbers, there's 140 to 200 grams per day in the case of the 200-pound person, you're going to be fine. Okay, so like leucine, for instance, just think of it like this. If you got all the amino acids, which are what are going to be building your muscles and helping you recover and all the stuff we talked about, if you're getting all those amino acids, an amino acid like leucine, think of it as like a foreman on a construction site, right? It's the leader. It's not necessarily the most important amino acid. They're all important, but let's look at it as like the leader. And you got all these other amino acids that you're eating throughout the day from other protein sources, complete or otherwise. The leucine is going to be like, it's going to make sure the job gets done, right? So if you eat a lot of really important essential amino acids like leucine, and again, you're going to do that by making sure you're getting a complete profile with every meal. If you eat a lot of animal protein, then you're pretty much fine. If you're eating mainly plant-based, you got to do a little more homework. We talked about that. But if you're getting that, it's gonna make all ships are gonna rise, right? It's gonna make everything better. I hope that makes sense. So basically, the takeaway with that is just make sure you eat complete sources of protein, and you don't really have to sweat the details in terms of absorption rates and ratios of amino acids, and whether or not fats are going to slow the absorption when you really. All that stuff does play a role, but it doesn't play a role that you need to be concerned about. Just stick to the basics and make sure you get enough complete proteins, and you will be fine. I think I have another couple questions. Yes, okay. Can you eat too much protein? Yes. Yes, you can. First of all, if you have a health condition, like there's some kidney diseases out there. I used to have a client with terrible kidney problems, and his doctor explicitly told him to make sure you eat less than this amount of protein per day, or you're going to have some serious problems. If that applies to you, then listen to your doctor. Don't pay any more attention to me. Find out what they recommend. For the majority of us, however, who are, at least when it comes to eating protein healthy, you can still have negative effects. One is you can get fat, right? I mean, it is harder to get fat eating a lot of protein, but it is possible. If you're eating, let's say your daily metabolic requirements are 2,500 calories just to maintain. To stay exactly how you look right now, you need 2,500 calories. Let's say that's you. And you eat 5,000 calories every day. Even if all 5,000 of those calories come from protein, you're still probably going to put on a fair amount of weight because just like carbs, protein has 4 calories per gram. Okay? So, it's still at the end of the day, when you get down to brass tacks, calories in, calories out. So if you're 2,500 calories over your limit, you're going to get fat. Most people, though, again, they don't have that problem. Most people can't get that much. They can't find a way to do it, and that's fine because you don't need that much. Also, you get, I kind of talked about this already, but you get diminishing returns the more protein you eat. There are some like old school bodybuilders who insist on 2 grams of protein per pound of body weight. So in the 200-pound person who trains hard, you're looking at 400 grams of protein a day. I did that dog crap training program. Dante Trudell, he's a strong advocate for 2 grams per pound of body weight. I'm not going to argue with him. I want to bite my tongue on this because I've thought a lot about this. I do actually think in these ultra-high protein diets that there is sometimes a case for it. But again, that doesn't apply to you. Just take my word for it. It doesn't apply to you. For in your case, you're not the exception. Stick to that 1 gram of protein, and that anything after that is probably going to be, it's not really going to be doing much for you in terms of building more muscle or getting stronger. You're going to reach the max potential in terms of those 2 categories, building muscle and getting stronger by eating 1 gram per pound per day. Okay, so diminishing returns you'll experience with eating too much protein. Okay, and then lastly, there's a lot of like little things. Well, I shouldn't say little things. It depends on how you look at it. But ketosis, you can get thrown out of ketosis by eating too much protein. Specifically, too much. There's some particular amino acids that can derail ketosis, and I experienced this myself. So if you're on a ketogenic diet, you got to make sure that fat is your primary reason. This is not going to be a keto video, but some of you guys are, I know, into keto or at least keto curious. You can get thrown out of keto. I ate keto just again out of curiosity to see how it would affect me. I did it for 6 weeks, which arguably that could have been a problem. Some people need 6 months to really adapt. But anyways, I did it for 6 weeks, and I just thought, okay, as long as I'm not eating carbs, I'll go into ketosis. And I got down to under 15 grams of carbohydrates a day, which was brutal for me. I don't know if you realize how little amount of carbs that is. It's very, very, very slim. And I was not in ketosis, very, very rarely in ketosis. And I found out later the reason probably was because I was eating an insane amount of protein along with my fat. So I would literally just take a pot roast and just eat a pot roast, right? Like just straight up. I would just eat chuck roast and pot roast and just tons of meat all the time. And I was getting tons and tons of protein, probably 400 grams a day. But it was throwing me out of ketosis. So if keto's your thing, just know that you can eat too much protein. All right. This is kind of a common one, should I lower my protein intake while I'm trying to lose weight or cutting or getting lean? I think I might have even hinted on this already. No, you should not. If anything, you should make it higher. This kind of almost goes a little bit against the science, when I was talking about the diminishing returns. But if you're really trying to get lean, if you're trying to lean out, you're in a caloric deficit, there's a lot of reputable diets, nutrition services, dietitians who will recommend eating more than 1 gram per pound of body weight. A real common macro ratio, if you're familiar with that term, is 40% of your calories coming from protein, which is a lot of protein. And it's effective for most people. Now you're probably thinking, well, doesn't protein have 4 calories per gram? I mean, aren't I going to get fat if I do that? No, you're not, as long as you're lowering your carbs and your fats while keeping your protein high. If you're keeping your protein high and you're not lowering your carbs and fats, then you're probably not in a caloric deficit. And basically, you keep the protein high while you're trying to lose weight, and you drop off your fats and carbs. You start tapering those off. And again, the whole reason behind this is feeling full, just for your sanity, blood sugar regulation. It's the big one is preserving muscle, preserving as much muscle as you possibly can. Because if you don't eat enough protein and you're eating in a caloric deficit, you're going to lose muscle. You're going to lose muscle as fat. Probably you could lose muscle as fast as you lose fat. Therefore, you're becoming that that proverbial skinny fat person who basically just looks like a smaller version of themselves if you're not eating enough protein. So while you're cutting, it is absolutely crucial to eat as much, if not more, protein than you did when you were trying to gain weight. Okay, that's very, very, very important. Should I supplement? It's another, probably the most common question. Everybody wants to freaking know about protein supplements. And it is kind of a hot button for me, only because I supplement with protein every day. I have been forever. I love protein supplements. I think everybody should probably supplement with protein if they need to, because it's very hard to get your protein that you need throughout the day from whole foods only. Not impossible, but it's difficult. But everybody wants, again, back to that old, yeah, I get enough protein, I have a shake every morning. That's not enough, all right? And that's not a substitute for quality whole foods. I can't tell you why whole foods are better. Excuse me. I don't really think anybody totally understands why whole food of carbs, fats, whatever, vegetables. I don't think anybody really understands completely why they're better, but trust me, whole foods are better. But supplements are fine, okay? So should you supplement with protein? Should you have protein supplements, whey, isolate, hemp, pea, eggs, grass-fed, whatever? Yeah, go for it. I drink raw eggs. I guess, no, never mind. I'm not gonna talk about that. But it's one of the few supplements that I would recommend for anybody, just with the caveat that it's not a substitute for a solid, whole food, protein-rich diet. It's literally a supplement. That's why it's called that. It's just to kind of help you bridge the gap. So if you need to have 1 or 2 little protein hits from your bag of protein every day, maybe 1 in the morning, 1 after you work out, whatever it is, go for it. But it shouldn't be your staple, okay, for your protein source. You need to get it from foods, primarily. But go for it. If you want to supplement, go for it. And I threw this one in just because you hear it all the time. It's outside the scope of what I'm really going for here. Some of you might not know what I'm talking about, but so I take in whey, I supplement with whey after a workout and casein before I go to bed, right? Yes. Sure. I just kind of wanted to further drive the point home that if you're eating enough protein and you're getting it from complete sources, and most of those sources are whole foods, it really doesn't matter. I mean, yeah, if you really want to get down, casein absorbs more slowly, and when you're in that fasted state, when you're sleeping, you get that slower drip and slower absorption, and therefore you might be able to repair just a little bit better while you're sleeping. Whey protein is pre-digested and absorbs super quick, so you need it so you get it right when you need it. But really, it doesn't matter. I mean, I know I'm repeating myself, but if if you eat a steak 2 hours before you work out, you're still going to be using that protein to help you repair after your workout. I mean, it's not like you're just going to shrivel up and die if you don't eat 2 hours after you work out. Okay? It's the same before you go to bed. Now, again, I am acknowledging that there are some specific tweaks, but again, this doesn't apply to you. Just eat enough, eat enough protein, and make sure they come from whole foods primarily, and spaced at a reasonable amount throughout the day, and you will be fine. If you want, just eat a steak before bed. Eat a steak before bed. They'll do the same thing that casein supplements will do. All right? You'll be fine. So the takeaways. I don't going to talk about anything else. The takeaways here, 40 minutes, I think, total, something like that. If you want to gain weight, you want to lose weight, you want to get stronger, you want to recover faster, eat 0.7 to 1 grams of protein per pound every day. All right? Make sure if you're not getting most of your protein from animal sources, that you are doing a little extra homework and figuring out what kind of combinations of food or supplements you need to do if you're primarily plant-based to make sure you get all those essential amino acids throughout the day. And yeah, make meal prep a priority so that you can actually make all this stuff happen. Make meal prep a priority, and you're going to be fine. You're gonna hit all your protein goals, and you're gonna get all those benefits that I talked about from protein. You don't need to worry about all the little things. I promise you don't. Focus on the big stuff, and you will get the results that you want. Just focus on what I talked about. All right, guys? I hope that helped you out. I hope that answered a lot of questions for you. Please subscribe to this channel. Follow my 0 to Burrito series, which is basically what I'm talking about. The big picture stuff, the 20% of effort that's going to yield you 80% of the results, the stuff that really, really matters for almost everybody. Subscribe to this channel, like this video, comment. Thank you very much for staying with me. I hope you guys have a terrific day. Eat your protein, eat your vegetables. I didn't even talk about vegetables. They're important too. But yeah, protein. Yeah, protein, Ma.